Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, of course, as you all know, that there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the world. A lot of stuff here in the United States that's catching a lot of people's attention. And rightfully so. You know, we've got a debt ceiling that seems to be looming that we're going to hit and not break through, because it's obviously so important that we just increase the amount of debt that we have. I mean, it's completely illogical to just say, you know what, maybe we should spend less. There's all kinds of warning signs, and Janet Yellen is out there saying it's going to be absolutely disastrous. And as of right now, it doesn't seem that the Biden White House and the House Republicans are going to be able to come to any type of, agreement on what to do. And so that's in the news a lot. And then, of course, yesterday Tucker Carlson announced that he's going to start his show up on Twitter. And so, of course, that's got everyone all excited and wondering what's going on and how it's going to work out. Israel looks to be involved in another war potentially against Hamas and other factions in the Palestinian movements there. Iran has basically given its approval to what they are doing, and there's a lot of rocket fire. There's been tanks moved into positions, and just seems like a lot's going on. And then, of course, in Pakistan, it looks like it's just seemingly overnight starting to fall apart there with a potential coup attempt and arrests of certain officials and just attacks and stuff. But I'm here to talk to you today about something that I have been talking about almost every day for the last few days, and you may be getting tired of that, but I think it is very, very important, and that is about the hundreds of thousands of illegals that are currently, as I'm speaking, headed to the U.S. border to cross into this country. This is something it's not going to happen starting tomorrow. Tomorrow is when Title 42 ends. It's actually been happening for the last several days. Like the rush, the invasion started days ago. In fact, Border Patrol has been reporting that the number of migrants crossing, and I use that term loosely, migrants, you know what I'm saying, illegals, that's crossing the border is somewhere around 11,000 a day right now, which is a substantial increase in what there has been. And like I said, that and others are reporting that there's reports of anywhere between 700,000 and up to 1 million that are currently at this moment making their way towards the border. And I don't know that quite everyone fully understands how serious this is. The amount of people, just people, even if there weren't any criminals involved, even if everyone was good, wholesome, hardworking, genuinely good people, if that's all we were dealing with, it's still hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions that will be coming into the United States starting now. I mean, it's already happening in a substantial increase to what's been happening. And this just alone, them being good people, it's going to really mess up how things are going here in the United States. And we know that there's definitely a violent criminal element to many of them, not all, but many. And so we're adding that into the mix. Cities all across the border are gearing up and preparing for that. I've spoken to several people over the last few days that live anywhere from pretty much right on the border to within a couple of hours of the border. And they're telling me that that whole groups of communities, farmers, ranchers, homesteaders are buying up guns and weapons, and they're working on little plans, almost to the point of creating little community-like militias to defend themselves against this vast, rapid influx of migrants coming across the border. And of course, the Biden administration doesn't care. To put this into a little bit of perspective in numbers, during the Trump administration, the average number of illegals crossing the border on any given month was around 25,000. There were a couple of months that it unusually peaked over 100,000, but mostly it was within 25 to 50,000 a month. Since Biden's been in office, on the low end, it was 160,000 a month, but it's been averaging about 220 to 250,000 illegals every month coming across the border. Now they're estimating that number will increase to about 500,000 coming across the border. And that's conservative estimates from the Border Patrol. You have to understand, and as you all know, that usually when the government gives you a number, it's usually not the exact correct one. A lot of independent studies are believing that it could be even larger than that the number could be 750,000 to 1 million coming across the border every month. But let's just stick with those conservative government numbers. Approximately 500,000 coming across a month. That's the state of Wyoming. The state of Wyoming coming across the border every month. In 12 months, that's 6 million people. That's the states of Missouri or Colorado or Minnesota or Maryland coming across the border every month. And even if only 1% of those coming across the border are violent criminals. I mean, they're all criminals because they're entering the country illegally. But let's just say that only 1% are violent criminals. That's still a massive amount of people that are coming here to do violent crimes that are coming across the border. And of course, the numbers show that it's much higher than that there's a large growing amount of violent crime that's coming in with a lot of these illegals, which is different than what it was decades ago, 10, 20 years ago. It honestly, there was only a smaller percentage of violent crimes. Now we're seeing a lot. There's a lot of cartel activity. And then, of course, we fully don't understand and know how much foreign adversaries are coming across with them from China and Russia and other nations, that they're possibly military or intelligence elements are coming across the border posed as, illegal aliens. This is disastrous. This is an absolute invasion, folks. And we can't sit back and say, well, that's bad, but boy, it's a good thing I don't live close to the border, because eventually this is going to spread out everywhere. There's no way that Texas can sustain these numbers. They just can't. And they have already said that they're planning on busing and shipping a lot of them out, primarily to these sanctuary cities. But even that's not going to work, because they're not going to be able to ship all of them. And so over time, over weeks and months, it's very likely that a large amount of Americans are going to start seeing more illegal activity, more of these migrants moving into their areas. And it's quite possibly that we could see tent cities popping up, or some type of camps where they're starting to congregate. And then, of course, crime is going to just skyrocket in a lot of these areas, because they're coming here with nothing. And they got to eat, they got to have clothes, that kind of stuff. And many of them have addiction problems, or they're just prone to do crime. And then it's not a secret, it's well known that not all, but many of these do come here with the intent of kind of taking back over parts of the Southwest that was once Hispanically, run, part of Mexico. And so there's a lot of criminal elements that just purposely want to do harm, because that's why they're coming. That's not all of it, I understand. There's several and many that want to just become, workers, have some money, send it back home. But even that is taking money out of the United States economy and sending it to another country. So it's whatever money that person is making, it's not being put back into our economy, it's being shipped to another country. And so that's going to hurt us also. The drain on strain on social services, law enforcement, medical, any type of help for, underprivileged people, things like that, it's going to be a massive drain. If you start to see these kind of influxes in your area, you should probably start planning on not having adequate law enforcement and medical capabilities, because in areas such as like where I live, it's very, very rural. There's not a whole lot of law enforcement. If even just, a few thousand came into my county, it would put such a strain on services that, most of these like county sheriffs might just have to stick with focusing on the cities, and people in the outlying counties just may be on their own for the most part. This is a reality that we have to face. Biden administration has proven that they could care less. There's a report this morning that the Guatemalan government was saying that there were about 80,000 Venezuelans moving through their country trying to get to the border, and that they had repeatedly tried to contact the Biden administration and that they were refusing to answer their calls. The Mexican government said that they've seen groups as large as 150,000 moving to the border. And to just put that into some perspective, 150,000 moving to the border, if say 150,000 crossed all at once, there's no way that Border Patrol or even National Guard troops can really stop that. It's just a massive influx. There's been a guy on, I can't remember his name, but he's been on Twitter, and he's a reporter for a local news agency somewhere, I believe in the Brownsville, Texas area. And so for the last few days, he's been on both sides of the border just live streaming what's going on. And it's constant. It's nonstop, constant, just pouring, crossing the river constantly. And he was at one part in Brownsville where part of the wall had been built, and they had a big gate there. And the gate, my goodness, you could probably drive 4 to 6 semi trucks through the gate. That's how big the gate was. The gate was completely wide open, and he walked around showing there was no Border Patrol, no National Guard, no any type of law enforcement or U.S. officials on the U.S. side. There was nothing there. And these illegals were just pouring through. And there was no one there to stop them, no one there to do anything. And he was saying that it's because it's gotten already to the point of overwhelming when you consider the size of the border and the number of actual personnel that they have to control it. It's too much. It's already overwhelming, and the big push hasn't even gotten here yet. So the likelihood of all of these even being documented, I mean, even if they just, get their name and number or whatever, and then let them cross the border, the likelihood of that happening to all of them, there's going to be definitely thousands and thousands that make it across that we never even know about, that we're not even able to track. And who knows where they're going to go and what they're going to do. We've seen in cities, if you look at videos of El Paso and Brownsville, even all the way up into Midland, Texas, and areas an hour or two from the border, we're seeing massive amounts of homelessness, of crime, of just going through the cities where there's just hundreds and hundreds of people, almost like tent cities, where they're just sleeping on the sidewalks and congregating around churches and other buildings. This is something that we're going to see everywhere, folks. And it may not be as profound everywhere, but you can't have millions, 6, maybe even upwards of 10 million people a year coming into our country undocumented and expect that it's not going to spread across the whole nation. And even if certain areas don't really feel the immediate effects of that because they don't have them in their area, if one, this idea that, which I would love this to be true, that all the states are independent, is just not so anymore. And if one state starts to collapse because of all this, it's going to have ripple effects across the country. Now, of course, I truly believe that this is all being planned and done for a purpose. The Biden administration and the far left, they want to destroy America. They want to bring these elements in because they know that the amount of intense burden that's going to bring on communities is going to aid in the downfall. And maybe it could, they have this hopeful intention of allowing these people to vote. There's also another aspect of it. It could be that a lot of, and not just the illegal alien part, but all this other stuff that we're seeing happen that seems absolutely absurd, but it's being allowed. It could be that the long-term goal intention here is to allow all this stuff to happen to the point that the American people have such a outcry of pushback that they're demanding government control. And then, of course, government control comes in with the big boot on your neck and says, all right, you want government control, you've got it. And now we have some, 1984 type of control over everyone. I don't know the exact goal that they're looking for, but I, of course, know it's not good. And this is happening right now as we speak. It's not, oh, well, tomorrow it's going to happen. It's been happening for days. There's been a buildup, building, and there's been more and more coming across. You know, a month ago or so, the Border Patrol and Homeland Security was estimating that once Title 42 would end, that the amount of people coming across the border could be as high as 10,000 a day. Where already this week we've been seeing numbers of 11 to 13,000 a day coming across, and Title 42 hasn't even ended yet. And so their estimates, I believe, are obviously low. I have no doubt that we could see numbers as high as 20,000+ a day coming across the border, especially when you look at the size of these caravans that are headed towards the border. It's absolutely astronomical. There's been videos of literally hundreds of buses and tour buses headed to the border, filled, and I mean completely filled, with illegals getting ready to cross the border. It's happening everywhere, and unfortunately, nothing's being done about it. Biden sent 1,500 National Guard troops down there to not stop it, but to help process these people. Governor Abbott of Texas did announce that upwards of close to 10,000 Texas National Guard will be sent down there. And that sounds great, but when you look at the size of the Texas border, it's still a very small number to try to stop this. So, and then the thing is will they really be able to stop it? It would be more of being able to process them, of document them, because it's almost an impossibility at this point with the numbers that are coming across, unless they really want to use full force to stop it. And then, of course, on top of all of this, you've got the whole cartel situation, where there's just a rapid increase in violence from the cartels due to all of this. And the amount of violence and potential border wars that could start on the border over the coming days and weeks because of all this is a very real thing. So we have to be getting ready for this. You need to be stocking up, especially if you live along the border, you know, within at least 2 hours of the border, especially if you live in cities that are maybe sanctuary cities, or they're just prone to have a lot of illegal alien activities. Definitely be staying on top of that around military bases. It's very likely that they could be shipping some of them around military bases to house them. And again, I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm not saying they're all criminal. I mean, they are criminal because they come into the country illegally, but I'm not saying that they're all violent criminals. But there are definitely a pretty decent number of them are. And so you need to be getting ready just for that aspect. And then the long-term repercussions for this country of how it's going to put such a drain on the system and can bring us down to the point that over the next year or two, and I mean, by the end of Biden's administration, we could be looking at very much a third world-like country in a lot of places in the United States, because we're already seeing that. We're already seeing places that look like third world country, and that's going to spread. So folks, you need to be getting your houses in order, preparing for this seriously, because it's not going to happen. This isn't one of those things we talk about that could happen, this conspiracy that it could happen. It is happening right now in this moment as you're watching this video. Thousands and thousands and thousands of illegals are pouring across the border right now as we speak. So you need to be getting ready for that, preparing yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.